Danny, one of your great heroes, certainly one of mine, has a birthday today. Sir Kenny Dalglish is 75 years of age today. Happy birthday to you, Sir Kenny, if you're listening this morning. Is Liverpool not so happy times for them? Go to Molineux last night. The King! Go to Liverpool last night and they lose by 2-1. Now they've got to go back to Molineux on Friday night for the 5th round of the FA Cup. So we'll see what happens when that happens. Oh. In the meantime, Simon, a gentleman you and I are going to go to dinner with very soon, the PFA Chief Executive, Maheta Malango, yes you are, has been speaking. He has claimed that England players fear being, quotes, forced to take a stand on political issues during this summer's World Cup in the USA. It's happened before, and Malango says it could well happen again.
What some of them have told me is that they find it a little bit unfair that ultimately, for as much as they have a platform, why should they turn into spokespeople for governments or for a governing body that in reality should be the one taking the lead? You know, I think some of them felt that in the past, and we've seen that, for example, in Qatar, some of them basically were left to hang out dry because instead of having the government or having the governing body showing leadership on certain topics, all of a sudden the players were asked to become political spokespeople.
That was Maheta Malango speaking to our chum Rob Harris on Sky News. He does have a point. In Qatar, you could argue that certain England players might have felt they were hung out to dry. Many of them headed out there. They were asked for their views about LGBTQ and human rights before there was a fallout and an eventual climb down over the One Love armband after the threat from FIFA that players would be booked if they wore it. I remember Harry Kane talking about that.
I think we've made it clear as a team and the staff and an organisation that we want to wear the armband. I know the FA are talking to FIFA at the moment, and I'm sure by game time tomorrow they'll have their decision. But yeah, I think we've made it clear that we want to wear it.
Yeah, there's nothing I can add to what Harry said. I know there are some conversations going on. I think a number of the European countries have spoken, and we've made our position clear. So hopefully everything will be resolved before the game.
Danny, you played the game. Is it disingenuous to suggest players are forced to speak out? Has taking a political stance always been a choice as opposed to being an expectation?
Players speak when they want to speak, don't they? When it's relevant for them, when it's convenient. And players are different. They're not all the same. I don't think you can't stick them all in under one label. Some players want to share opinions and are more articulate than others, and some players just do as they're told and go with the flow. And I was probably like that when I played because I didn't feel like I was clever enough or strong enough to come out and have a valid opinion, so I just go with what the masses were doing. The thing that got me is what he's talking about. He said, he's talking about players who are socially conscious and people who understand they don't live in a bubble. I mean, it's ridiculous. You do live in a bubble. You can't help it. You do. You have to in the world we live in. They all live in a bubble, and they're not all social.
Some footballers, I know you're sniggering here, because some footballers are socially conscious. Of course they are.
Of course they are. And no one's suggesting that individuals aren't. But the institution that this industry provides around people allows them to be rarefied air. They're not in touch with reality. They're not in touch with the societal issues in the way that most people are, because they haven't got to be touched by them in the way that most people are. Because they live in an environment where everything they do and say is right, and they're protected, and their bums are wiped, and everyone tells them how wonderful they are. And that's not me being unnecessarily controversial. It's the reality of the circumstance, because I watched it happen. And I've seen it, and I've been in the industry. Now, to suggest that this lily-livered, weak FA are dictating to players what they must say is absolute nonsense. The players themselves decide what they want to say, and when the heat in the kitchen gets a bit hot, they don't like it. Neither did the governing body. When the governing body decided to put his little two-penny thing about the Ukraine war, but then all of a sudden, when the situation happened on October the 7th, they didn't want to be supportive of that because they knew there was a more fiercer blowback. Everyone started to realise, we better keep our big trap shut because we've got no real skin in this game. We don't really have a point of view besides either virtue signal our way into a position or not really understanding all of the broad strokes. There's the best thing that sport can do, because it doesn't really want the consequences of it. If the consequences of wearing a One Love armband where players were going to get a yellow card, we'll take the yellow card then. You didn't want to. right? So you didn't want to put any skin in the game. You didn't want to have any consequences for the governing body saying you can't do it. So what is the point of doing the hokey cokey when it suits you? What is the point of suggesting that when the situation surrounding George Floyd, everybody, including the virtue singing broadcasters, ran to support an initiative, and then they worked out backwards, hang on a second, BLM is not something, really, the principle of Black Lives Matter, of course is important, but the organisation that stands behind it, we better not do that. Because what people do is they run towards, they see the direction of travel and go, let us lead you. It's a bit like Piers Morgan does. Piers Morgan sees a particular subject matter and goes, I'll lead you to where you want to go anyway. And then all of a sudden, people realise the ramifications of it. So this suggestion from this busy PFA that would be better served doing things like looking after dementia, looking after the players that they should be looking after.
The PFA head is quite happy to engage with you when you're ready.
I don't want to go for dinner with him. Come on a radio show and do it. Do it so everyone can listen to it, not on a QT. I'm not interested in having a social chat with you.
That apart, what are we going to see then in the USA? This is going to be the most politically charged World Cup ever.
Well,
we have no idea what's going to happen from this point to when it kicks off.
I don't think you see players commenting on it, and I think it's the right thing to do.
They'll be asked.
So don't answer. I think that if the football foundations of all these countries and federations of all these countries have got any sense, they'll be saying to their players, shut up and say nothing. There's nothing for you to say. You're here to represent your countries playing football, and get on with playing football.
So do you think there should be a universal stance? If you're the FA, should the FA be saying to Tuchel, make sure none of them speak when asked, as they will be asked, about off-field issues?
Well, I'd be very curious if you took a straw poll before you get into the dictating to people what they can and can't say. If you did a straw poll of the players and said, I want to sit you down, right, as the manager of the team, do you want to get involved in this subject matter? Are you across it, and do you have strong views about it? And do you want to put your head above the parapet? And are you prepared to take the flak if you do? And watch the players' reaction to it, and you'll get, I guarantee you, without wanting to be biased, 90% of them would turn around and go, no, thank you. If Neville was in the dressing room, of course he's an activist, he'd be up front and doing what he felt was right. But they're the minority, not the majority. So you then go with the consensus. Because most of the young players are, with all due respect, young men that have certain views in life, but most of it is about what pair of boots they're wearing.
But what if there's one Danny who says, yeah, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing away from the field of football at the moment? Yeah, I would probably want to talk. Should there and then the FA say, well, yeah, all right, if you want to do that, do that? Or should he be told, no, fall into line with the others and say, sorry, football only?
He should be told, because then it's just more about him, and he can bring heat to the rest of the boys and make it less about football. So he should be told, save it for your social media when you finish the World Cup.
He should be reminded, just out of curiosity, well, we have this moment to share together, where you're being selected for your national team. Why are you here? I'm here to play football, gaffer. Right, well, get on with the football stuff. And when you want to talk about the politics stuff, off you go offline and do as many interviews as you want in your own time, sing your own song and do whatever you want. But whilst you're representing your country in a football stadium, if these divisive, disingenuous journalists want to turn it into an article to create headlines for themselves, you don't have to play that game with them. You talk about the football. You talk about what you're here for, because you're here to play football.
The other thing is, how many players do you think have got the gumption to talk about something and go against the grain? 90% of them, if allowed to speak, are going to say what is they want the majority to hear and is PC.
Well, recently we saw and heard some of the athletes at the Winter Olympics. They weren't afraid to speak up.
I'm talking about high-level football players.
Because one of the American snowboarder was called a real loser by Trump, but he must have expected that to come in the horizon from Trump.
Well, yeah, but he also knows the country in America, as we heard from Brad Friedel the other day, is very divided. There was as many people that will agree with his opinion as disagree with it. But the principal point doesn't. If you hate representing a country because of its values that you dislike so much at this moment in time, don't represent them.
Right. So if you're at the top of the FA, which is an image I hesitate to even imagine, Simon,
it should be celebrated.
You would be saying to Tuchel and the rest of them, make sure they do not comment on anything other. There's a blanket ban on anything other than football.
Well, just out of curiosity, Joe, I know you've asked him the question, but just out of curiosity, what topics are you thinking the lads are going to be asked about?
Well,
ones he likes.
Trump.
You think an English football player is going to start talking about the Democrats and the Republicans?
The current war in the Middle East.
No,
Iran are at the World Cup.
They're not going to talk about it. They won't.
They were asking Qatar about it. They were asking Qatar about human rights issues, about LGBTQ and human rights.
And they had no substance behind their position. Because the moment if you want to have these conversations and you want to be bold and there's nothing wrong with it, then you have to put some skin in the game.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to. So what's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of going, I'll say something, but when it comes on top, I'll run away from it? You either stand for something You either believe in something and you'll go all in it, or shut your mouth.
Yeah.
And that's not me being harsh to footballers. And I'm telling you now, Thomas Tuchel, as a football manager, will not want them anywhere near anything but football.
Okay, we shall see. We shall see. With each living, working day, it gets closer, and we'll see come the time.